Hey, Christian, would you, I believe you're hosting this call. Would you please eliminate my AI, the Eva, please? I'm unable to remove it because I'm not the host of this meeting. Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, Nora.
Hi, Ned. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How have things been for you?
Very good. Things are good.
So
Are we expecting Greg on this?
I expect Greg will be showing up.
Okay, great. You sound better, Fabian.
I am much better.
That is such good news.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm so glad.
Thank you. Christian, I have a question to ask you. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Christian, where would you identify the best source for identifying what the top dApps are that are being used currently? I ask this because I've been looking for some charts. I just pasted a link in the chat for the dApp radar top 50 dApps. Well, it's actually much more than that, but you'll see there that there's a listing of dApps that are getting the number one dApp is getting 17,000 users over a 24-hour period, and then it tapers down and goes to once you get to the top 15 and below, we're entering into hundreds of users over a 24-hour period versus thousands. And what's interesting about the chart is that there's nothing here music related. Now, I don't know whether those music dApps that are being built have not yet connected their traffic to the dApp radar. But I'm just wondering, where would you go to look for the top to see what's going on in the world of dApp development? And I'll paste a link in here as well of another source. You know, in seeing the world of blockchain and the world of technology developments. Granted, a lot of people are still building their teams. There's a handful of people that are building out dApps and their platforms. Most of those dApps are gambling oriented. But I'm wondering to you and also to the rest of everyone else that's on the call, what are you seeing out there? Because in the idea of building something that would achieve a level of mass adoption, seeing what's already out there, to my view, it doesn't seem like anyone's really built it yet.
Yeah, I guess the problem I have is like I don't use any dApps. So like I'm not looking for anything in particular at the moment. Like the last dApp I used was Steemit, and that was like 2 years ago. So you're right. Most of the dApps that are on the market are gambling, and it's impossible to really verify the users of that dApp, even though these websites try to track some of that data.
Yeah, it's curious, you know, just seeing what the state of affairs is out there in the world of dApp development. Because it doesn't seem like anybody's really built it yet. I'm wondering if anybody has seen otherwise, if anyone has seen the great dApp success story. Because based on the numbers that I'm seeing out there, no one's hit it yet. My assumption is the silence translates into nobody has seen it yet.
Yes, in my travels and going to the blockchain related meetups here in the Tampa Bay area, no one has really brought up or we haven't had big discussions on what dApps are out there that people are using. All the conversations have been more towards the platforms. And we had, at least at one time a year ago, a group of, I was looking at the link that you posted, and we had a group that was working on EOS. And there was the only dApp that I was aware of that seemed interesting and was going to get some traction. It was a like ADP, their or Paychecks. You can subscribe to that service to pay your employees. And I can't think of the name offhand. It's an unusual name, but they were going to be on the EOS platform, and that was actually the only dApp that I was aware of that had made any progress. And now I'm curious. I'm going to see if I can find that company. If I do, I'll post it in the chat.
If you guys click on that link that I provided with dApp Radar, it's incredible that I'm going to go to the final page here, but 2,257 dApps. All right, and across the entire spectrum, everything is being built on EOS or Ethereum or Tron. That's it. And the vast majority of the dApps have zero usership, and it's all gambling.
Interesting.
So it's like it begs the question: where are all of the music dApps that people are reporting that they're building? Where are all the dApps that are reported around supply chain? And where are they?
So most of them are still private. right? I mean, most of them are proof of concept works. They're rolling out to businesses for testing. SBI Bank in Japan just announced a public beta of using XRP as a payment solution.
Mhm.
But most of them are still, from my understanding, building and private and closed. So, it's not at the point yet where people are, except for CryptoKitties. You can't forget about CryptoKitties.
No, you can't. No.
And,
I found a
you know,
little article here just now.
yeah, and Engine is building a gaming solution, right, for trading assets within your game.
Mm-hmm. Wax. Yep.
So I wonder if those show up on the DApp radar.
The search function.
Because they're built in, I believe the way they do it is they actually build the wallets into the games. So I wonder if those show up. But yeah, no, I mean, we're still early.
Yeah, I think this year, 2019, is the year. I mean, we've said this before, but looking at this chart is really super clear to me that this is really the year that everyone is just building, and the big rollout of the great dApps will probably start showing up towards the end of this year into first quarter of 2020, because there's nothing out there.
Yeah, I just posted an article.
Yeah, I see that.
In the chat. That I thought was
I mean,
cool.
potentially Tron. I think today they're rolling out their BitTorrent client, and that possibly could all of a sudden become the biggest dApp out there. I haven't seen the news yet today, so.
You know who just joined the call who might have an interesting comment about this? Mr. Greg Meredith.
Mr. Meredith, how are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. Sorry I'm a little late. What's the topic of the conversation?
We were having
just having a discussion about
world of dApps. So
Yeah.
I think I shared with Greg in an earlier call just the charts that are out there regarding dApps. You paste the links, and what's pretty clear to me of the approximately 2,000 dApps that are out there that are being started, nobody has built the killer dApp. And everything dealing with music or supply chain or shipping containers or the environment, nothing yet exists in the real world. And everything is.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, it's so I'm just in a little shock considering that.
Hello?
Hi, do you hear us, Mr. Meredith? Hello.
Hello?
Greg, does everybody hear me and Greg? Hello?
I hear you.
I can hear you.
Fabian.
All right, we're back.
Okay. I'm not sure what happened there. Suddenly there was this like
You have a very unique setting on your phone that allows things to show up and disappear at the Yes. So
okay.
So our conversation is just, I just opened up a conversation regarding parts of the dApp universe, and really put up the floor to everybody to ask a question: who has seen the dApp the great dApp? Where is the great dApp? Does it exist in the world? And considering all of our conversations specific to music, be it tickets or streaming or decentralized social networks and all of these things, has anybody built it yet? Because I don't see it. Which leads me to then the next thing. I believe that there's just thousands of individuals locked away in their offices coding, and that towards the end of the year, beginning of next year, there's going to be a whole new wave of new blockchain-based technology dApps that are going to show up in the world.
I don't agree with you on that point.
Okay.
In order for those dApps to show up, they have to run on a platform that actually has speed and volume.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's like you actually have to deliver the goods, right? It's like you have to have the platform, and Ethereum isn't there, and they're not going to be there with their latest release. Like, there isn't a platform out there that has that capability apart from one. Yeah. So, I'm just, I think that, we sort of, we laid out the landscape, back in 2016. We said, I was in the room with Ed Eichholt and Evan Jensen and Lisa Rice and Ian Bloom. We all kind of said, look, the thing that's going to make this work, the thing that's going to make proof of stake economics work is transaction volume, and we have to go after dApps that create transaction volume. But guess what? This platform can actually handle that volume. And we started sketching out. Well, I'd done it a few years before, but together we explored the market stratification and which dApps we should go after first.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but I think that the other side of this is that we knew that the venture capital community were not interested in blockchain as a platform. Like you have to. It's very difficult for people who haven't been doing the venture game to understand what the pre-blockchain venture mindset was. The pre-blockchain venture mindset was almost completely determined by Web 2.0. So what that means is that if you were pitching to angel or venture, they weren't even going to look at you unless you were already generating revenue and had a user base of somewhere in the millions.
Mm-hmm.
So think about what that means in terms of so you're already profitable, and they're not going to touch you until until basically you don't need their money, or you need to scale at a rate of scaling that justifies injecting tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. That was the profile. And then the blockchain comes along, and the venture community completely misses it.
Is anyone having difficulty hearing Greg?
Yeah, he's breaking up.
Yeah, he's going through the matrix.
They totally did not get what happened with blockchain. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you've been breaking up, Greg.
Yeah, we lost the last 30 seconds.
Oh, sorry about that. So hopefully you got the point that I was making about where venture was in terms of their risk profile.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So then the next thing is that because of that, the vast majority of the traditional venture firms just missed out on blockchain. They had to come in on the tail end of blockchain, right? But they missed it. They just missed the major bubble that happened with blockchain, right? And now that that bubble burst with the to mix our metaphors, the crypto winter, they're back to their old game. They're back to, well, show us that you've got an application that is profitable, that is serving millions of people, or we're not interested. And I knew that was going to be, and all of us knew that was going to be the most likely outcome, which was why I was racing against the clock to try to get the platform and at least a few dApps working.
Yep.
And I was, burning the candle at both ends in the middle to try to make that happen. So, and where we are, well, we've got the platform most of the way done. We're about to launch. We have really just a few weeks before we launch now. And we have at least one dApp to the point where we have an MVP. And and all of those things are because those are the things that we did as our chain, not depending on anyone else. Any other thing that wasn't like directly under our chain control with our chain people working right on it, that just didn't happen. And no comments there. It's just those are facts on the ground. So anyway, that we still need to recognize that that's, if we want to go after venture money, then that's more or less the reality on the ground. They're not going to put anything in until we have demonstrated a few dApps, at least one, but more likely a few, that have a user base that's generating profit.
Mm-hmm.
So there's several. First of all, I want to say that that's incredibly short-sighted on the part of the venture community. It's the way I felt about the venture community before, and the way I continue to feel about the venture community. If I'm at that point where I am profitable as a business, I want to grow the business organically. I am not interested in this, massive capital influx scale and lose control of the business. Just, I'm not interested in that, and I don't know who they wouldn't take that deal. I know that there are entrepreneurs out there who would do that kind of thing. The WhatsApp people is a great example. But if you're profitable, you just grow at the rate that you grow. And then the second point is that you go. It's no longer the case that the crowd has to be excluded from the injection of capital part, because they can also take part in the profits in a new way. And that's what happens with crypto. Crypto makes it possible, it changes the game when it comes to crowdfunding. People can chip in, and as a result of chipping in and owning tokens or other kinds of crypto assets, they can participate in the profit making, which means that you can get communities investing. And when you think about it, right, it's like when you're talking about this growth at scale, this sort of hockey stick kind of curve that most investors are looking for. What you're interested in this kind of 10x thing. So you want to be able to take 1 million users to 10 million users in a very short period of time, and 10 million users to 100 million users in a very short period of time. And now, if you think about it, that does require an enormous injection of capital, but that was those kinds of economics took place in a market where Facebook was and continues to expect to reap billions of dollars of profit per quarter, and none of the content generators or curators participating in those economics, right? The same is true for Twitter. The same is true for Spotify. The same is true for most of the digital asset management markets, right? Where this very tiny group of people are reaping the profits, rather than like the crowd is doing the work, but a very tiny group of people are participating in the economics. That was the landscape 10 years ago, but crypto changes that, so that the content generators, the content curators, and the crowd in general, people who want to just be involved through tiny investments, can participate in the massive scale economics. And that is a big change. And I don't think that the VC community understands how big a change that is. And that's what I think we have to keep our eye on. The community is what funded our chain. There's not a cent, not one penny of money from VCs in our chain. It's all from community members, from members of the crypto community, and people who are just interested in seeing our chain happen and are active. I cannot tell you how many investors are active in promoting our chain. It's really astonishing. And I just think that that's where we need to continue to focus our efforts. If we do want to get in larger scale monies, then we should follow that same model, but follow it for higher agency individuals and families, right? So we go directly to, for example, when we're talking about RSong, we should be going to artists now. We should be going to high agency artists and talking to them about what we've got so far, what our vision is, and what our values are. And
what about promoters? I mean, I want to promote my son's music. He's a music producer. I want to sponsor his music on RSong.
Well, it's an interesting idea, and if you can get a block of promoters like that and a block of artists, then we could do it, right?
But once you have a few dozen, okay, and your platform is generating income, at that point, it will be much easier to get on the big promoters and the artists.
Well, so it's a great idea, Jim. Go for it. If you organize, just get a cadre of 12 independent artists that want to come, or 100 independent artists that want to come to the platform. We're ready. We want to do this. Even with 100, we can be testing out our artist intake. And if we find kinks, we can be doing it by hand while we're fixing those kinks. I mean, that's kind of where we are, and as long as we're just honest about where we are, and we let people know, hey, and we're working to get things better, and they see that we're working to make things better, then it becomes a community effort, which is what it always should have been.
All right. I just want to get my son's music on there, and then I can go after others. Right now, I don't have anything to show them. I have to get we have to get them on there, and of course, have all those connections within the industry, which I don't have personally. My son does, but we have to get him on as almost as an early step, as soon as it's possible to do that.
Well, I love this. I love this idea. I mean, that would be the route I would go, right? And that's why I've encouraged I've encouraged everyone involved with RSong. Talk to the artists you know.
Now, can I buy any RSong tokens with my with some rock? Because all I have now is rock.
Right. No, I hear you. We don't. I left the token part of it to be determined by the artist community. What we count is the playbacks. We can turn it into rev, and that's a couple of weeks worth of work at this point. And in which case your rock just works because your rock is equal to rev. So if you think that's a good solution and there's enough people backing it, we can do that. I had always thought that the best solution is to leave it with playback count and get the artists to determine or to decide how to do tokenization. But maybe there's a better solution. Maybe the interim solution is to go with Rev, which we can wire up and then revisit how tokenization should be done for the content providers.
Yeah, I think, Rev is fine for start, but really, I think tokens should represent very specific values.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
So I can provide support, and that's why I joined the call today. Really is just to let people know that I can provide support. I really don't think I can organize artists or set up this whole thing, but
Hey, Jim, a couple weeks ago, I had asked Ned that question about, where was the RSong in regards to onboarding of new artists? And I think, Ned, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you were working through some of the legal aspects of that onboarding process. So how close is maybe this is a question for Ned or for Fabian. So Jim, he knows someone who's wants to go through the onboarding process. Are you guys ready to initiate that process, or when do you think that would be able to start?
So I mean, the issue from my perspective is, we don't even have a legal statement. We have nothing drafted from any kind of attorney to say to an artist, okay, trust us with your song, and while the platform may not be ready yet, when it is ready, here's the terms that you'll get. So we don't have that yet.
Okay.
So if I was Jim Sun or an independent artist, I could see, for me, I've been around a long time. I've been an early adopter of many, many, many different technologies, and most of them, have gone the way of the dodo bird, if anybody remembers that analogy. So you have to be willing to take that kind of risk. If you're going to be an early adopter, you have to take the risk that this will not work. And how many of the independent artists out there are going to say, well, it may not be great what I have now, but there's no guarantee. There's not even a legal statement of what I could probably even anticipate. So unless I just happen to be also a real techie.
Yeah, I'm sure my son wouldn't have any interest in it, but he wasn't a rock holder.
Okay,
yeah.
well, so
that's my point, Steve. I think we still have a little bit of work. We could upload songs, but the songs don't yet get ingested into the player.
Okay.
That's on track for the next phase. So we're waiting for funding on that.
Okay.
And we need a lawyer, right? We need to draft some kind of bare bones legalese and agreements so these artists know that they're going to be protected, if they do choose to upload their songs to our platform.
Okay.
And that's my opinion. So.
I don't think that artists really have an issue. I mean, I'm an independent artist right now myself, and I have been for, at least 10 years. I don't full time, and I don't think and Fabian knows exactly what this like. He's been an artist for ages as well. I don't think artists really have an issue trying a new platform or taking a risk in putting their music on a new service or seeing if they can monetize it in a new way, or reach a community with a new technology or whatever. I think I don't really see what the risk is that you guys are really talking about. I mean, just from my perspective, obviously I'm a little biased.
So how many of those artists in your community are ready to sign up today?
How many artists in my community would be ready to sign up for RSong?
Yeah, if you're saying these people you believe are willing to take a risk, and I hope they are. How many of them?
I think they might want it to be a little bit further along than it is now. I'm not saying they would do it today, but I think that they would do it. What I'm saying is that I think we might need to get a little bit further along than it is now, but I'm just saying I don't think that they wouldn't do it because it's too risky or because they feel like there's something to lose, or I don't think that there is any promise that RSong needs to make them or anything. I think artists are constantly needing to try new ways of promotion. Basically, failure is success in motion, which is something I say about everything in art and everything in life, actually, in business as well. And, I don't think that there's anything that we need to promise them. I think that it's basically just an idea, and the more people that sign up to do it, I think like the more successful the idea is going to turn out.
Well, but hang on, Nora, you said something really important, which is you said that you don't think they'll sign up unless it's further along. What does further along mean?
Thank you. That was my question.
Well, I think it's possible they could sign up now. I mean, like, I would put some of my music on RSong right now. Like, sure, why not? And I mean, like,
but that's kind of what we need now. We need content now.
Yeah, I mean, like, if the time is now to ask, like, a bunch of artists to get their songs over, I just, I thought that we were supposed to wait until like the intake was like fully prepared and all that stuff was
understood.
Ready.
Yeah, understood.
I mean, I've been told a bunch of times, like, to wait. And, so I've been preparing like a list of people that I've been talking to over the last, months who think this is a cool idea. And like people who I know who like to take risks. And like, Greg, you and I have had umpteen conversations about people who, artists who have an audience, who like to try new things, who are not risk averse, who are, who like to lean into the future, as it were, people like that. And like, Fabian knows a lot of people like that. I know a lot of people like that. You know a lot of people like that. I'm not saying that like the platform needs to be further along necessarily, but I think like it's kind of a thing where like there needs to possibly be like a little bit more maybe like social proof, or possibly like we just need to like make sure we know what the artist intake like scenario is.
It needs to be completed.
What
I mean, it's really
what is social proof?
I mean, it's kind of like a chicken and egg thing, I guess, that like.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to say. It's exactly right. Well, people don't want to join unless other people have joined.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, we could get around that. I mean, I think, like, if we just say, like, look, this thing is in the beginning, and, like, we're getting, like, the first batch of artists decided this week, and, like, we're all doing it this week. So, like, here we go, plunging into the black hole, whatever. Like, that could be fine. I just think, like, basically what I was waiting for to tell people to, like, put your music on this thing was, like, what I heard from Fabian, I think, and from some other people, was, like, we just basically need to make sure that the intake process is prepared.
And we still have a lot more to do. I mean, look, our phase 1 is good, but it's, we don't have artist profiles set up yet. We don't have the ability to be able to allow for a user to upload a song and then send an email to their guitarist and their bass player and their drummer to be able to pull in that data and for them to create their own user profile.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying people wouldn't put their music on now.
Like, but I say all of this also because we have one shot, and I know with my network and my friends, the idea for me to pick up the phone and start onboarding people is the idea that here's something that you're going to say, this is awesome, I love it, this makes sense, I understand the vision, even at the most basic level, which is what phase 2 is, just get us at the most basic level, and then still the basic aspect of here's a song, you've uploaded it, process through which it lands on the player, the ability for the player to alphabetize the songs or search, or to not even making a playlist, but just that basic functionality. Because tomorrow there's 1,000 songs. How do I search for a Nora Germain song if there's 1,000 songs? So the most basic thing is what we're waiting for. When we have the finances and we're able to move forward and build it, and that process is done, as far as I'm concerned, the onboarding can then begin. The conversations with artists has already begun, but the real process of bringing people onto the platform, we need to get through this phase 2, because that's really where this looks real.
Yeah. So
what? So I want to.
I need to set the expectations here a little bit, because I think everybody kind of needs to know what is in that first phase that we did. So what is not in that first phase is actually storing any of the songs on the blockchain, right? So due to resource constraints, that piece never got done. And so everything is now being stored off chain. So that's not what we want to go to artists with, right? If we're going to do this, the songs need to be stored on the RSong infrastructure and the whole workflow needs to be complete. So that's one. So that's a big thing. We're waiting for funding so we can move forward to do that. And then two, the player, right? The player is such a bare bones player that once we get a number of songs on there, it's going to be impossible to scroll through the list of songs to hear what you want, because our player today does not have search. Redoing the player or updating the player is going to be an expensive proposition unless we could get the source code from Immersion and the source code is worthy to start building on top of, or we would have to go from scratch and rebuild those players ourselves. So, you know, we need funding so we could actually move forward with these initiatives. We have a roadmap. You know, Fabian and I have that roadmap, and you know, it's just now a matter of funding.
Right. So I'm glad you made that point, because this is what I'm trying to say. The only people that are likely to fund this are artists. I've been working for a year now to get this funded. VCs won't fund it until after there's enough artists on the platform showing that they're going to do the work. Okay, they won't touch it. Right? There's no one out there that's likely to fund it except the people that are likely to use it. So if you want, so you're going to have to take a risk and cut the Gordian knot by going to the people and say, this is where we are. This is what our dream is, where we want to be. We have some very detailed ideas about what we need to do in our next phase and the phase after that. That's called a roadmap, right? And are you interested in getting in at this early stage and helping us fund this thing? And if we don't go to that audience to get funding, there's nobody left. I've gone up and down, left, right, top to bottom. I can't find anybody else who's a likely target to fund this thing.
Right. I mean, that's an excellent point, Greg. So rather than, so I think our focus needs to be, if I could just repeat what you said, is instead of looking for artists who have songs they want to upload, you know, we need to find artists and forward creative people who have money and want to fund this.
That's right. That's exactly right. That is precisely it. Yeah. So we need to go to the high-end, high agency artists who are independent and who are values aligned and can grasp the vision.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that, Nora, I think, you know, when you find those folks, you know, we have the pitch deck. You know, we could do the demo. We could talk. You know, I know Greg is really busy. Fabian and I can help you do that pitch. You know, because, you know, that's what we need. Honestly.
I think we really need to prove the concept before we're going to get money. And the approach may be well, first of all, there has to be a protocol written down for how you actually get songs on our chain. And we have
that. We know what that is, Jim. That's all well figured out.
Okay. And I guess my son is interested in producing music for the platform. I don't know if and when that would be possible.
What do you mean by producing music for the platform?
To produce the immersive sound.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Right. So there's a protocol for that. I mean, if that can be done independently.
So if your son is interested in that, I suggest that he contact Ron Jones, Sky Muse Studios.
Okay. But if we have a protocol for getting a person on, which you say we have, then of all the people that say, okay, I'll try it out, we choose a person with maybe the largest community or the most relevant community, and we put on one artist. Okay, so that we have something that works for one community. And that will prove the concept without overloading the existing technology, so to speak.
Yeah, and that was exactly what we were attempting with Imogen Heap and the California Guitar Trio and so on.
But Jim, we still need funding. I mean, when it comes down to it, we need to fund this. So when we get somebody who wants to put their songs on the platform, those songs can be played on a player with a great experience that they know what they're going to get if they actually should start getting royalties.
Yeah,
There's a whole slew of things that have to happen, and honestly, at this point, we need funding.
Yeah, so this is what I was trying to say, Jim. Is like we we produced the MVP as of September of last year, right? And that MVP is a player. We have an acquisition mechanism whereby we can get songs onto the chain that's already built and checked in to GitHub. What Fabian and Ned were referring to with respect to getting songs on the platform is there's another piece of the puzzle that we did by hand for the MVP, which was we received the audio data from the artist. We passed it over via Dropbox to Paul Hubert, who then ran the immersion encoding on their audio data. And then we used the proxy piece to then take that audio data up. So receive the audio data, say, in a WAV file format from the artist, and run the immersion encoder on it. And then hand it off to the RSong acquisition piece. That part needs to be written. It's about a week's worth of coding. It's not serious, but we don't right now because we're so focused on putting all resources onto the delivery of mainnet. Without additional monies, nobody's going to write that code.
Yeah, what's the status of the special purpose vehicle?
So the special purpose vehicle is up. It's a corporation registered with the Washington State. It's a Washington State B Corp, right? So it's a public benefit corporation ready to go. But my point is this: we over the course of the last year, talking to investors, they wanted equity and they wanted a DApp. This was unequivocal. There's not a single investor I talked to that didn't basically toe this line. But if you dig down into the details, once you say, okay, well, here it is. Here's the corporation. You can invest in that. Here's the MVP. Their next volley, their next response is, yes, but that needs to be further along. We need to see that you actually have users.
Right. Well.
Okay. So investors, the traditional VC is not going to invest in that thing without users.
Yeah. So if we offered tokens, then we wouldn't have to necessarily go to rich musicians. We could go, to the general community of musicians and give them the offer to buy tokens, kind of looking at it as a prepayment or something for whatever, which could provide some funding. And then, of course, once you have token holders, you have advocates.
Okay, so let's run with that idea for a minute. So there's a partner that we've talked to for several months now, who is an established player in this space with more than a decade's worth of customers, offering a token-like offering, more or less along these lines. They can't get any funding. They've been talking about this now for 6 to 9 months. So I agree with you that, if it were 2017, that's a great strategy. it's not 2017, it's 2019. And having kind of done this quite a bit, spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on this, my recommendation to this particular effort is go to high agency artists and see if we can get them involved. Failing that, I don't know how to fund this. You know, probably there are better people out there who can turn the trick, who can make it happen. I don't know how to do it. I've looked under every rock that I could spot in my landscape. I've, you know, in the mornings done my morning meditation, letting my mind open to see what other opportunities there are. I don't know how to do this except this last ditch effort. Go to high agency artists, get them involved.
Okay, well, I'm kind of late for my other meeting. I'm not sure what action, if any, I can help with at this point. I will keep considering it, and thank you very much for bringing me up to date. And
thank you for joining the call, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Great input. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have something that is ready for you to start having your friends and relatives to start bringing to the platform. I look forward to that.
Yeah, but I mean,
right.
the other possibility that Jim was raising, you know, thanks, Jim. The other possibility that Jim was raising is instead of going to high agency individuals, we go to blocks of artists that might have a little bit of discretionary income. That might be another way to do it. So crowdfunded or crowdsourcing. That's another possibility.
It is my fear on that, Greg, is with the illiquidity right now of the token, that it would be hard to get people to do that.
Okay, well, if you know, I mean, effectively, if we don't, then we need to pack it up.
Or just open up the one exchange we currently have and just have our token being able to freely trade, you know, with all the risks that may entail.
Sure.
You know, we could have.
I mean,
or we crowdfund it. Look, I just pasted the link. There are platforms where you can crowdfund it.
But why would people invest if, at least for the time being, there's nothing they could do with that investment?
Well, the investment would need to be, number one, we build a business. Specifically here, we're building a technology. That technology is supposed to generate profits and revenues.
And I see what you're saying. So you're saying almost like another company built on our chain.
Yeah, I mean, this really what we're doing. We're talking about building.
That's what RSong is, another company built on our chain.
Right, we have that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, it's I think my takeaway from this call, I mean, look, there's number one, clearly we all know we need finances to come in to allow us to build this out the way that we want. That's one. Number two, hopefully some revenue does show up to allow for the phase 2 to take place, because it's not all that much money, and it would allow us to get to a point where we can start onboarding talent and prove the concept, which will make us a much more valuable investment proposition, because we need all of this. And then as we go along, we need to find the money, and whether that's going to come in from artists or VCs or family funds or through a crowdfunding opportunity. You know, it's time to kind of look at what we've been doing and see what new things we could think of, and maybe a crowdfunding direction is something to consider. But in order to get to that place, I am still a believer that with a phase 2, it makes us a much more valuable proposition, considering that what we're talking about doing does not exist in the world, and it'll prove something that'll get a lot of people excited to want to jump on board, because we've actually built that thing.
Yeah, understood, Fabian, but you can't get to phase 2 without funds.
Of course, I know.
So you're going to have to go get some funds somewhere.
Yep.
And the question is where. You know, my recommendation is that either you go to basically my recommendation is artists want this. They're the only ones that understand that they want this, right? The end user doesn't understand this. The VCs don't understand this. The only people that understand what the need is from the inside out are the artists. So you go to the artists and you say, we can help you.
Yep.
That's your customer. So, you know, go talk to the customers and see if there's some customers who will take the first step.
Yep.
All right, I got to jump over to the staff meeting, but you know, it's an interesting situation. I actually think this dialogue is really, really important because, you know, we're at the point where the rubber meets the road.
Absolutely.
Right.